the train, and she kept saying, he certainly doesn't like me very much, does he? And I'm sure I was in the way and all that. And at the railroad station, he disappeared, saying goodbye to Mother. He came back. He's got a box of chocolates and a picture, this sort of very romanticized Hamlet-like photograph you get, and Onity wrote, "To my second mother." And I remember as she got on the train, there was still a puzzled look on her face. I thought he hated me, you know. And to this day, James Dean was the most wonderful person in the world as far as my mother is concerned. She forgot the whole 2 weeks of misery being trapped in that little apartment with him on rainy days while he would refuse to speak to her and was concentrating on sculpting a phallus in the corner. But I think in a way it was indicative really of something interesting and magical about Jim. When he expressed that he liked you, he was so relieved that he wasn't always hating you, or that he wasn't holding some grudge, or that he wasn't being contemptuous, that you heaved a huge sigh of relief and said, "What a nice guy."
While Jimmy is a student at UCLA, he lands his first professional acting job and makes his film debut. Jimmy is paid $30.
Go get Pepsi for the Pepsi bounce. Now go get Pepsi for the Pepsi bounce. More bounce to the ounce, more bounce to the ounce. Go get Pepsi for the Pepsi bounce. Then why take less when Pepsi's best? More bounce to the ounce with Pepsi.
In Jimmy's next few screen appearances, he will have little visibility.
Pepsi gives more fun, more bounce to the ounce.
With only bit parts and little recognition, Jimmy becomes frustrated in Hollywood and decides to try his luck in New York. September 1951. New York in the early 50s is the place to be. The Broadway theaters are thriving, and a new electronic marvel called television is offering opportunity to the legions of unknown actors, including James Dean.
Are you ready?
Jimmy's first job in television is on a show called Beat the Clock. The premise of this show is to perform bizarre and difficult stunts within a certain time frame in order to win prizes.
Stop the clock. Put 'em out. 30 seconds. Go.
The rules of the show stipulate that all of the stunts, no matter how hard, must be physically possible. Backstage, testing these stunts to make sure they can be done is none other than James Dean. October 1952. Jimmy's luck changes. He lands his first leading role on Broadway in a play called See the Jaguar. He plays the part of a vulnerable teenage boy who has been locked up all his life by his demented mother. The critics single out Jimmy for giving an excellent performance, but find the play silly and contrived. It closes within a week. For the next year, Jimmy appears in more than a dozen TV dramas. Then, in 1954, his big break comes when he's cast in a play called The Immortalist, with Louis Jourdan and Geraldine Page. Jimmy gets to play the part of a corrupt Arab houseboy. During rehearsals, Jimmy and the director do not get along. The director wants Jimmy to respect his authority. Instead, Jimmy experiments with his role, changing it each time with a new interpretation. After weeks of backstage battles, Jimmy has had enough. The Immortalist opens on Broadway to good reviews, and Jimmy gives his director 2 weeks' notice. As Jimmy begins to look for new work, director Elia Kazan has begun looking for a new actor. Kazan is about to cast the lead role of Cal Trask in his new motion picture, East of Eden, and considers Jimmy for the part. Before making his final decision, Kazan holds a screen test in New York for the 2 finalists, James Dean and another unknown, Paul Newman. The part of Cal Trask, the Choice Hollywood Role of the Year, goes to James Dean. Before leaving for California, Jimmy meets his co-star, Julie Harris.
I remember meeting him for this little screen test. It was just really to see us together, how we looked together. And at one point, I remember putting my hand like this, and Jimmy said, "Why do you do that? Do you think you look too old?" And I thought, you son of a bitch. I didn't say that. I said that to myself. I said, well, I am older than you. And from then on, it sort of got into the back of my head that I knew that was a sort of device to keep you off guard so that everything was alive. He just reminded me from the very beginning of Tom Sawyer, a guy who would always get you to paint the fence and get you into the terrible scrapes. But it was all like, well, what's life for? It's not to just go plodding in the same places every day, but it's an adventure.
On March 8, 1954, Jimmy leaves New York. With his worldly possessions packed in some paper bags, he boards a plane for California. This will be the beginning of the